All right, what if you have a drone like this, simple little DJI drone you want to use to like move around and photograph things? What would a flight control system look like for that airplane? Well, normally with airplanes, we control an angle of attack and a side slip. But when you're in hover, there's no such thing as angle of attack and side slip, because angle of attack and side slip are literally the angles at which the air is attacking the airplane. When you're in a hover, the air is not attacking the airplane at all. This angle of attack and side slip are undefined, so we're not going to use that to control this drone. Another thing we've been looking at a lot is roll rates and pitch rates. When I'm inside an airplane, I'm perfectly happy to control the airplane based on the pitch rate and the roll rate and the yaw rate. The problem is, with these drones, if you command just a little bit of a roll rate and it stays in there, I mean, eventually you roll the thing upside down. And when you're flying a drone, nobody is sitting there saying, let me see how nice I can make this drone to fly. No, that's not what they're doing. They just want a drone that's stabilized in space. This thing is nothing but a flying camera. What you really want to do is stabilize it at a location in space to get the photographs you want to get. What kind of flight control system do you want to have to meet that kind of unique mission of stabilizing at a point in space? And here's the answer. What you really want to do is, if your hands are off the stick, you want the drone to be absolutely still, just completely motionless. If, on the other hand, you put in full right stick, you want the aircraft to move to the right at a certain speed. Put in full left stick, you want the airplane to move left at a certain speed to get to a new location. Take your hands off the stick, you want to stop right where it is. If you push the stick all the way up, you want to climb as fast as it can. Lower the stick all the way down, you want to come down as fast as it safely can. Take your hand off the stick and you just want to hover in space. This is a completely different flight control system than anything we've talked about. Let me refresh the memory now on this one more time. This is the flight control system for this DJI drone. How does it work? If all the sticks are untouched, the drone should hold its position in space, no questions asked. Just remain rock solid, still. This should control how fast the thing goes to the left in meters per second. This should control how fast the thing translates to the right meters per second. This is translation forward in meters per second. This is translation aft in meters per second. This is translation up in meters per second. And this is translation down in meters per second. In other words, those three axes I just showed you control how fast it goes forwards or backwards, how fast it goes left or right, and how fast it goes up and down. And the final control axis, it's a little bit familiar, is this one. And when we move this controls how fast the thing rotates left and right. That is the flight control system that the real drone has. It is not very fun to fly, but it is perfectly appropriate for the mission of the aircraft. And we now simulate this in X-Plane. Where do we do it? Artificial stability, drone stab. So here is where you can actually enter the flight control constants for a drone if you want to design a drone in X-Plane to use it for practicing drones in the sim. The first is longitudinal, lateral, vertical speeds with full up and down stick. That is clearly exactly what we were just talking about. Longitudinal speed with 4.5 stick, 15 meters per second. This thing does 10 meters per second, so in the sim, of course, I gotta do 15. Lateral speed with full left and right stick, 15 meters per second. That's how fast you're gonna move to a different location to start photographing. Vertical speed up and down, 5 meters per second. And then yaw rate with left and right stick, how fast it yaws. How does this flight control system do this, though? We've just entered what our commanded rates are, but how does it get the commanded rates? Well, as you may already know, if you want to pitch this way, just juice up these props a bit. You want to pitch this way, just juice up these props again, a bit more. You want a little more lift on this side, juice up those props and around you go. And the way these props turn, clockwise, counterclockwise, if you just juice up the corners, counterclockwise and clockwise rotors get more or less lift, then you're going to yaw the thing as well. So that's how the flight control system is going to go from a commanded rate out to the rotors themselves. But the question we have to ask is, how much do we want to change the throttle, right? That's the question we still have to ask. So the first thing we say is, look, if we want a 15 meter per second longitudinal speed with 4.5 stick, in other words, if we push this thing all the way forwards and we want 15 meters per second of forward speed, then we are going to initially pitch the nose down 45 degrees to get it. Now what's kind of interesting is As this drone starts to build up, 15 meters per second, the nose is going to naturally level off so it doesn't just overspeed. And so that 45 degrees is going to be what the thing initially drops down to get going. But as soon as it picks up some speed and starts to approach 15 meters per second, that nose is going to level off. Longitudinal speed, future predict. We always build flight control systems to look in the future. Remember, it takes time for throttles to adjust, although not much with electric motors, that's for sure, as any Tesla driver can tell you. That torque is instant. But it takes time for the propellers to spin up, and it takes time for the then that to turn into acceleration and a velocity and ultimately a position. A good flight control system has to look into the future a bit. I found that our longitudinal speed and lateral speed should predict in the future about 1 second. So in other words, when you push the stick all the way forward to command a 15 degrees or 15 meters per second forward speed, the nose will initially drop 45 degrees, but then as the thing sees the acceleration is going to get you up to 15 meters per second, 1 second in the future, it's going to start raising the nose in anticipation of building up that speed. And that's what stops it from overshooting. And remember, whenever a flight control system overshoots, well, then it's just going to overshoot again the other direction until pretty soon it's spinning left and right like a drunk person driving a car. Vertical speed, future predict. We don't need to look so far into the future for vertical speed. I did a 1 second prediction on the lateral speeds, but only a 0.1 on the vertical speed. Why? Because when you dump in some throttle, it's just going to immediately start climbing and nobody's going to complain about that. You don't need to look in the future much there at all. And the yaw rate future predict, you actually don't need to future predict in yaw, because if you just put in more torque at caddy corner rotors, that yaw rate is going to build up linearly with the torque, which is exactly what you want. We future predict and roll and pitch a half a second. So in other words, once we've got a certain pitch and we are commanding, let's say, less pitch, we're going to look in the future half a second based on our acceleration rates to anticipate what the pitch is going to be in the future. So when we apply throttle, we're always ahead of the game, not behind the game. We're anticipating, not falling behind. And that's what makes a smooth flight control system that anticipates what the airplane needs to do next. So now we've seen all these control constants that are designed to give us a certain longitudinal, lateral, and vertical rates that pitch to try and give that to us, that predict how fast the drone is going to be going soon based on accelerations to start to level the nose, that start to level the nose and advance a little bit, as you see here with the future prediction. The final thing we need to do is say, look, once you have a certain pitch, heading, and roll command, how does it get turned into the throttles out at the corners of the airplane? And that here is throttle per max pitch, throttle per max roll, throttle per max vertical speed, and throttle per max yaw rate. And I've entered 2. Now what that means is it will literally try to add in 200% throttle to give full control. Well, it's only going to make it up to 100% throttle, but we still want to enter a number greater than 1 here, or at least I do, so that we really still apply a lot of throttle, even for small deflections. And that's what's going to make the airplane really do exactly what it's supposed to do. So these are some constants you might consider using for your drone and play with them. All right, let's take this for a flight in X-Plane. This is going to be kind of cool because I'm going to show you how you can have the same type of controller in the sim. Okay, here we are on the drone. We've got an instrument panel view, which is of course kind of silly. We can hit Shift W if we want, and that's going to give us a heads-up display view inside the drone, which is kind of nice. What I'm going to recommend is Shift 2. This is what you see when you really operate a drone. Shift 2, and then I'm going to hit the less than sign on the keyboard. That's going to back me away from the drone, or the greater than sign to move in. So I'm hitting the less than sign to move away, and I can do the arrows to move up and down and left and right. So I'm sitting here hitting the less than sign and greater than sign and the arrows to move my view around. Okay, I think that's the view that I want. Now, I am using my Logitech Extreme 3D Pro stick right now, and we're going to use a better drone controller in a moment, but I want to show you how to fly this thing with the stick you've already got. I literally have not reconfigured a single thing on this joystick. What is so fascinating is X-Plane with this flight control system is just automatically going to say whatever the stick does left and right, that's your lateral translation. Whatever the stick does fore and aft, that's your longitudinal translation. Whatever the stick does in yaw, that's your yaw rate. And whatever the stick does with the throttle, that's your vertical translation. So remember how I was talking about there was translation in 3 axes in the flight control system plus a yaw rate? This little joystick, and whatever joystick you've already got at home, as long as it has a throttle on it, or you have a throttle, will do the exact same thing. X-plane is going to look for the so-called aileron input to do lateral translation, the so-called elevator input to do longitudinal translation, the so-called throttle input to do vertical translation, and the so-called rudder input to do yaw rate. So what's so cool is all 4 axes of the real drone flight control system are covered in a simple little Logitech joystick, or whatever joystick you've already got. All right, let's bring in the throttle, and that's going to command a vertical speed. And there we go. Uh-oh, now I can't see what's going on. All I see is a blue sky. Let's go to flight configuration and bring in some clouds. That'll help us see what the motion, oh, that's too much clouds. Too much. Let's go for VFR scattered. Much better. Okay, now I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and now I'm going to lower the vertical speed. All right, because the throttle now is simply controlling a vertical speed. And now I'm going to try putting in a yaw rate. Uh-oh, try not to bump into the house. I'm going to push the nose down. Oh, and away I go. There we go. Look at that. Away I go as I push the nose down. And then I can translate off to the left. Oh, don't hit the tree. Translate off to the left and right. And then I can put in a little rudder input to change my heading at a certain rate. So around I come in heading. And then lower the nose. And so what we have here is absolutely the real drone flight control system. And I'm going to lower my so-called throttle, which is just going to command a lower vertical speed. And boom, there we go. Okay, so that is how we're flying the thing with your Logitech stick, for example. Now, let's kick it up a notch. What we've got here is the Pulse Red, the Xbox Pulse Red controller. They're cheap. You can get them at Amazon. Here it is. And as you can see, this Pulse Red controller is very, very similar to the drone flight controller, in that just like the drone flight controller has these 2 axes used for translation and yaw rate, well, you can have these axes do exactly the same thing. Let's see if we can connect this to X-plane. So the first thing I'm going to do is unplug my Logitech Extreme 3D Pro. So this is now unplugged because I don't want to have 2 inputs trying to do the same thing. That'll be confusing. And then I'm going to turn this thing on. There's a little power switch that you can barely even see. I guess I'm going to push and hold. Yes, and it's coming on. And then I have Bluetooth turned on my Macintosh here. So it's Bluetooth on the Macintosh and this turned on. This is actually going to connect. Let's go here to joystick. Now, I want this thing here to be set to pitch, which it is, because remember, this is like the pitch axis in any other joystick. Pitch down is max translation forwards, pitch up is max translation backwards. I want this to be configured to roll, because this is doing what the roll axis was doing on my joystick just now. Full left is like full left on the joystick. That's maximum translation left. Full right, maximum translation right. And then this, up and down, this is what we're going to call throttle. Why? Push it all the way up. It's just like maximum throttle on my joystick. That's max climb rate. Bring it all the way down, max descent rate. And then finally, as hopefully you can guess, left and right here is just like the rudder. So we have this assigned to the yaw axis. Move this all the way left, you've got maximum rotation rate left. Move this all the way right, you got maximum rotation right. So here, that's how you configure it. Super simple. Configure your Xbox Pulse Red to fly X-plane, and you're flying just like you would fly the real drone. Right now, of course, I have to give it a try, right? And I'm going to fly with this thing. Oh, what the heck? Let's see if I can hold this on camera while I do it. Okay, here we go. So let's command a vertical speed by pushing up. There we go. And then I'm going to do a forward translation. Oh no, am I going to lose it behind the trees? Okay, there we go. And then I'm going to command a yaw rate. I'm going to try and bring it around to the right. See it? I'm translating forwards. Okay, let's bring a yaw rate over. I see now I'm steering it back towards me. Now I'm going to command a bit of a descent rate, bringing, I don't want to, I need to bring it over to me. Let's see, yaw it back towards me. then push forward to translate forwards towards me. Hands off, and it should automatically come to hover, motionless, which it does. And now negative descent to bring it on down. Whoa. Oh, ha! Uh-oh. I didn't see it in the yard. Hang on. Let's rotate. I got to keep it where I can see it. Oh, no. I feel like I'm bumping into the house. Okay. Bring it forwards. Oh, no. What am I going to do? Land in the road? Let me go. Oh, there we go. Okay. Let me go land in that guy's yard. Okay. Ha! There it is. Okay. And now I've landed in the yard. Okay. So there it is. You can now use the Xbox Pulse Red with X-Plane to fly drones in X-Plane, just like you fly the real thing. Forwards, holding the stick forward. Translate aft, holding the stick aft. Translate left, translate right. Try not to hit the cat.